woke, period, consciously be aware of what you saying. A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verb, choose the right verb tense. A, descansen pa siempre, Nipsey Hustle. Saludos, saludos, hola, 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 everybody. Yo me llamo Jessie Feliz y yo soy la presentadora de Spanish Swag. Gracias a todos ustedes por haberse tomado tiempo de pasar un rato con nosotras. And yes, I said nosotras, en vez de decir with me, porque hoy tenemos una invitada and I'm so geeked and I'm fired up por la muchacha que tenemos con nosotros hoy. And I'm going to bring her up here. Let me please give a big round of applause para la señorita o la señora, porque ella está casada. Whoop, whoop. Jacquelyn Austin. Whoop, whoop.
Hey, hola, hola, que lo que, mi gente.
Que lo que, all the Dominicanos, you can hear her say that. Que lo que. O en Detroit, digamos, aquí en mi ciudad, digamos, what up, though. Para mí, que lo que is like on the same, it's las mismas.
Yeah.
Hey, what up, though? You know, es algo coloquial, es algo de la región, de la República Dominicana.
Exacto.
And nobody try to tell you que es no de la República, trying to tell you that that's not right. No es una manera apropiada, algo buena, no es del estándar. No, it isn't about un estándar con lenguajes, you know? So, ¿cómo estás, mi amor?
Bueno, mija, yo estoy aquí. I'm really good. I'm here. I'm happy to be with you. Estoy tan contenta para estar aquí compartiendo contigo.
Sí.
Tú sabes, una semana larga de trabajo, a long work week, pero vamos a gozar, vamos a... sí, vamos a...
¿Sabes? Mi dicho favorito es no hay atajos sin trabajo.
Exactly.
No hay atajitos. We can't be taking these shortcuts. It's all about work.
Yes.
Okay, so Jacquelyn, tell us, cuéntanos por favor, ¿cuál es tu historia? ¿Cuál es tu herencia? ¿Por cuánto tiempo hablas español? How did you desarrollar esa manera de hablar de manera nativa? Tell us.
Yeah. Bueno, primeramente, yo soy mitad panameña y mitad americana. My dad is half Panamanian. I mean, my dad is Panamanian. My mom is African-American, so I'm half both of those. So, mi herencia es de eso. I've always had a love of Spanish. Siempre tenía un amor del idioma. And I just studied it from high school and to college. And then I went into the Peace Corps. Entonces, más o menos, yo tengo casi toda mi vida aprendiendo del idioma, pero cuando fui a vivir en República Dominicana, that was when I got more fluent in my language because I had to work in the language. I was working at the schools with the youth and the community. And so I had to get better language. And so that was kind of how I started speaking Spanish. Pero desde juventud estaba aprendiendo del idioma, estudiándolo. Y siempre me ha encantado el idioma porque eso es mis raíces, eso era de mi papá. And I just always wanted to learn it. My dad never really taught it to me.
Sí, eso es lo que yo quería saber cuando era niñita. Desde su infancia en casa hablaba español.
No, my dad never really taught it to me. Yo creo que más o menos, tú sabes que a veces cuando una persona se muda para los Estados Unidos,
tiene que
estimular. Entonces, eso es lo que pasó. So like when my dad came here, he was just trying to be American and he wasn't really trying to fully live out that part of his life. And so unfortunately, I did not grow up speaking Spanish, pero mis tíos y mi abuela siempre hablaba eso alrededor de mí, pero nunca me ha enseñado. Entonces tuve que aprender sola, pero I learned it and I love it and it's like the best thing ever.
Parte de su vida, es parte de sus raíces, de su sangre, de todo. Okay, so that's one thing I want to know, porque aquí en los Estados Unidos, digamos que más o menos 21% de personas que identifican que son bilingües por herencia y no por lo que aprende en el colegio. And es una lástima. You think about what goes on in other parts of the world, like más de 50% del mundo es polylingual, en los idiomas, y aquí en los estados, pero, I'm not going to focus on something negative, but we got to talk about hechos like it's a fact, right?
Sí,
So,
eso sí es verdad.
cuéntanos esto. When you first were introduced academically
Mm-hmm.
al lenguaje en el colegio, in high school, did you find anything? I know your ears were already acostumbrada, you know, to the sound, the fonéticas de español.
Right.
Were there any struggles that you had making connections, or did you think because of your background, you were able just to go right with the flow?
I struggle with grammar, with that G in your swag.
Grammar check, conjugate the verb.
Yes, girl, you gotta always do that grammar check. Siempre tiene que chequear la gramática. That was really like the hardest. I think I never thought about how it was a lot easier for me to pronounce things than my peers. I can say that now, like looking back on it, porque mi papi y mi abuela hablaban un poco de español alrededor de mí. Entonces yo estaba ya acostumbrada más o menos de entender y escuchar el acento.
Sí.
Entonces, I think it was a little bit easier in that way, but the grammar was definitely harder because just, you know, it's harder. Like some things end in O and you have to say la, and some things end in A and it's L, and it was like, what?
But la gramática en inglés, you know, inglés es más difícil, right? You know, porque la cosa que me gusta mucho sobre el español es un idioma que viene del latín. Like it comes straight from Latin, igual como francés, italiano, portugués, romanian y qué más. Y el portugués, español, hay 5 idiomas que vienen directamente. Francés,
Italia,
italiano,
francés,
español, portugués, romanian y francés. Los 5, those are the 5 love languages, as we call them, que vienen del latín. Whereas English is como like una mezcla de todo. You got some Greek thrown up in there. You got some Latin thrown up there. You got some German. You got some it all up in there. Right? You know, todo.
Well, but that speaks to us being a melting pot, you know.
Sí.
So yeah.
Sí, but you know what? With that concepto de melting pot, yo prefiero utilizar o hablar del concepto de una ensalada, right? Because we have this hondo that represents somos estadounidenses. And whatever you want to say, main culture or dominant culture represents la lechuga, the lettuce. But you know what? If I'm a tomate, I want to be my individual tomate. Nobody wants to eat una ensalada with just lechuga.
You gotta have some nuts in there. You gotta have a little bit of cheese,
some quesito. You want all that. Plus, let's sprinkle that salsa.
Un chin de sal a veces depende de la persona.
Sí, and so like, I think linguistically that melting pot concept is there, but culturally, I want to like encourage people, no, let's be una ensalada. You know, like let us all still have this plato hondo. This is like our nationality as far as like, porque somos de acá, but we have this individual story. And a tomato will never be a zanahoria. Never. You know, a cebolla will never be un pedacito de crouton or panecito or whatever, you know. And so that's what is an amazing thing about being bicultural as well as bilingual. Now, otra cosa es porque, you know, I'm not like an internet stalker, pero lo que yo leí en su página de Instagram, everyone, por favor, hay que seguir a ella. You have to follow Jacquelyn at Jack_Jack14 en Instagram. What I saw was que tú asististe a la Universidad Howard.
Yes, I did.
Everybody put your hands in the air.
How? Okay, cuéntanos. Okay, primeramente, ¿qué estudiaste? What did you study there? And ¿cómo fue su experiencia en el contexto por lo general, pero pensando también en con español o ser bilingüe?
Right. So I originally started to study political science because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I still kind of play with that idea, so, you know, don't be surprised. But I started doing that, and then I kind of was like, okay, I don't know if this is really for me right now. And so then I ended up finishing with my BS in psychology. I had, oh my God, the best Spanish university teacher. Shout out to my teacher. She's from Panama as well. Oh. So we connected on that because at that time.
Panamena.
Eso mismo.
Sí, okay. Eso.
Señora Benton.
Hey.
I loved her. I love her anyway. So that was one of the really, really big experiences for me with her in her class, that kind of propelled me forward, because yo había perdido un poco de mi fuerza buscando la cultura, aprendiendo el idioma, porque a veces si uno no tiene con quién practicar es muy difícil.
Sí, claro.
Y cuando yo entré en la clase con ella totalmente cambió mi vida, totalmente cambió mi perspectiva de, no sé, como de la cultura en general.
Okay, digamos, la representación importa.
You got that right.
Representation matters. Imagínense, think about what the media portrays. You know, there's always this, siempre hay peoples, no? But when we think about someone that is Latino, right, there's this image.
Right. And she looked just, well, not just like me, but she was brown skinned. She was tall, you know, she was beautiful. She was educated. And I was like, oh my God, like, I love her. And then also she was Panamanian. And because my dad was still not in the place where he was teaching me about my culture, yo me acerqué mucho a ella porque ella me estaba enseñando la cultura mía. Ella me enseñó del baile y de la música y todo, y eso me enamoré más con el idioma, la cultura latina a través de ella. Y sí, ella, yo la conocí en la universidad y todo, y ella siempre me apoya. Hasta hoy en día yo hablo con ella, ella siempre me dice, ¿cómo tú estás, mi niña? Y todo. And it was just great. And I loved that when I went to Howard, I was able to have that kind of rebirth with my language, because I was struggling. And then shortly after that was when I had decided to apply for the Peace Corps the first time. First time I didn't get in, but I continued. And I went, and then I ended up going to Costa Rica after school. All right. Pura vida.
Okay, pero ¿de qué parte de Costa Rica? ¿Recuerdas?
Oh, girl,
¿Cerca de la capital o tú estabas en el Caribe?
No, yo estaba cerca de la capital. Yo no estaba en el Caribe.
La mayoría de los programas están basados cerca de la capital, en Heredia,
Sí.
o cerca de...
Yo recuerdo el nombre del programa, era Máximo Nivel. Entonces yo trabajé con ellos un mes y yo estaba enseñando inglés con una primaria que estaba como 1 hora y algo en el autobús, que tuve que andar todos los días.
Wow.
Yo todavía hoy en día tengo una amiga de allá también. Ella, yo no hablo tanto con ella como quisiera, pero she's amazing as well. So I don't know, like, it was just all, I think I kind of got sidetracked, but Howard was amazing. And I feel like meeting Señora Bolton at that time was really crucial for me. And then I just continued to study. I learned about like it was like a study abroad program through her, but I ended up not going. I don't know why. But then that was why I ended up going to Costa Rica the following summer, because I didn't go to that exchange program that they had. And yeah, I just love DC. DC was amazing. That was one of the first times in my life that, well, I won't say first time, but that was a very important time in my life where I was able to see more Black culture.
Yeah.
Porque yo soy de California.
California.
Sí, soy de California, y donde yo crié en el sur.
Okay.
Pero donde yo crié, no había muchas personas morenas en mi, ¿cómo se dice? Como like in my close circle. Entonces, no tenía mucho intercambio con moreno tanto.
Sí.
Entonces, cuando yo fui a universidad en Washington, D.C., fue la primera vez que yo de verdad vi en todos los rincones había moreno, todos los rincones. Y eso fue una bendición, porque yo aprendí más de mí misma, porque en California nunca identifiqué como mujer morena. No, yo sé que eso suena medio raro, pero I just never was like, oh, I'm a Black woman. I was just like, I'm Jacquelyn. But when I went to Howard and when I was there in DC with all those Black, beautiful people, is when I kind of started to grow. muy diferente. I started to kind of get more of an awareness of me as a Black woman, which was really great.
I love it. I love it. Y sabe una cosa, por un año yo viví en Texas. Y obviamente Texas es otro estado aparte de California.
Right.
Y las culturas de ser chicano en Texas también es poco diferente de lo que es en California.
Right.
No obstante, you still have this concept of el chicano. Y esa cultura no está incluido el negro. You know, it's not. Y yo, por ejemplo, yo tengo una amiguita, mi querida, y ella afroamericanita, no hispana, ella es de California. Y ella tuvo un novio que fue chicano. And everyone that does know Chicano culture, Chicano represents people, the majority of them that they are of Mexican heritage, herencia mexicana. But we know that la historia de los Estados Unidos, please do not, I'm all about buenas vibras, good vibes. So do not be talking about, well, this is the USA. Okay, so and all the people that are speaking Spanish that already were residing in areas before the USA became what it was. So that's not the energy that I'm about. Pero, so it's not fair to say all these inmigrantes, you don't know anyone's individual story. There are people that have been living in California, in partes de Arizona, Nueva Mexico, Texas, por siglos before whatever the colonization of los Estados Unidos, how it happened, over the land happened. Well, and mi amiga afroamericanita, she, you know, was like, como se llama, prometido a él, and she was going, they were like madly enamorados los dos, pero la mamá de él was like,
I was just about to say, when did she get into that part?
No, pull up, stop. And I heard the same, la misma historia, la misma, de personas diferentes. Pero, ¿sabe una cosa? It's not something that's muy, like, único, and it's just only happening in California or in Texas or within their culture. That's like por lo general. You know, you want your people to be with your people. I understand that. Pero the thing that is a little disturbing.
It's just like the way that it's done.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a way to do it, like, okay, we understand you want to have solidarity and you want to, you know, have that in common maybe or whatever, but you just don't bash someone just simply on the fact of who they love. You know what I mean? Like, it is who they love.
Exactly. And the crazy part is, even within la cultura, you know, in the United States, we label this hyphen Hispanic. Pero afuera de los Estados Unidos, nadie está diciendo hispano. It's like, soy colombiana, soy dominicana. You know, you rep where you're from, your country. And even within the country, you can rep what part of the country you are from, you know.
Exactly.
You know, like, oh, I'm from the Midwest, like we do. I'm from New York. You represent New York. You know, you rep that place, even though the overarching is estadounidense. It's the same concept. But within the U.S., we have this hyphen culture where we really, like, it's been encroached upon us where we're always labeling people.
Sadly, you're this, but
right.
You know what I mean?
Pero sadly, tristemente, el colorismo es you know what, cuando yo pienso en la isla originalmente fue nombrado, well, aparte de los taínos, cosas así,
right.
Llegar a los conquistadores, fue nombrado la isla española, right?
Yeah.
And recuérdame, is it 2/3 of the island's Haiti? And
no. 2/3 is the Dominican.
Okay.
Yeah, and Haiti is like it's so weird. So like ellos ni hablan del oeste porque técnicamente oeste es de Haití. Entonces ellos hablan del sur, del norte, del este del país, pero no hablan del oeste.
Wow. What?
Yeah, it was weird. I was like, oh, we're going to the west, and they're just like, where? Like Haiti? And I was like, what? I was like, no, like the border. I don't know. But, yeah.
And you know, even though you have these two countries ubicado en la misma isla, dividido, it's also the perception de los dos países for the rest of the world as if they're two totally, which they are, like two totally separate, even though I would imagine, me imagino que culturalmente es not just su esposo que tiene raíces de Haití.
No, hay muchas personas que tienen bisabuelos o abuelos que son de Haití, pero no está muy hablado por muchas razones, pero también el colorismo. porque ellos son muy prietos, muy oscuros, y los dominicanos eran conquistados de los hispanos, entonces ellos tienen los ojos azules o los ojos claros, y tienen su piel como más indio, o qué sé yo qué. Entonces todo eso está mezclado, por eso ellos, yo no sé, que no se llevan bien.
We just gonna say a prayer for all of God's beautiful children. You know, we
exactly.
You know, this post-traumatic stress comes from a whole lot of situationships.
Yeah.
You know? But I think el colorismo is like a problem por todo el mundo. You know?
I agree.
And it's una locura, but it's like you understand. But I just want everyone to embrace who you are, you know, and I'm so thankful that you had that opportunity to have that representación de una profesora morena, hispana, panameña. Like, that's so important. I think about todos mis estudios de español en la universidad, nunca he tenido ninguno.
Ella era la única.
Okay.
Porque los demás eran de como Argentina, Chile, algo así, Perú, cosas así. Todo eran rubia.
Sí. And it's just, representation matters so much. Y cuando yo era, por un semestre en el año 2005, yo era estudiante de intercambio. So when I was in Costa Rica, and that was in 2005, in 2005, yo viví con una familia tica, and I never forget.
Oh my God, I love my tica family.
I loved mi familia. Y I would say la universidad estaba como like 3 or 4 blocks away. No, maybe like entre 5 y 10 blocks away from the house. And I remember, again, I'm so thankful now we have more Black people traveling abroad now. We have a growing population of Black expats, not just in Costa Rica, pero en Mexico, por todo lado del mundo. And I just remember when in 2005, and this is the truth, Dios es mi testigo, I clearly remember I used to have to like show people mi pasaporte for them to believe that I was Afroamericanita estudiando en su país. As if this
eso está hoy en día, mija.
Sí,
porque cuando yo llegué a la República Dominicana, la gente me decían, no, tú no eres americana, tú eres dominicana. Yo dije, no, mijo, yo no soy dominicana, aunque muchas gracias, pero yo no soy dominicana. Yo soy americana. Y también yo tuve que enseñarle mi pasaporte a ver que yo soy, de verdad, yo soy americana. No, like, you really don't believe you. And I'm like, no, there's, Black people that are American.
And that are bilingual. You know, because then it also depends donde está ubicado, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, we want to change that narrative. I'm really big. I'm putting a secret out here now for Black History Month. I'm going to debut my new tee that's going to say I, too am bilingual, like in honor of Langston Hughes saying I too am American. Well, I too am bilingual. Like, like we have this whole concept of like, why is this so foreign for us to speak more than one language? Whereas Dr. Cammie J. Anderson, she talked about, as a result of the diaspora, we experienced language isolation. We were taken away.
Oh, I think I remember watching her.
I absolutely love that. It's in our DNA to be polylingual. Like it's in there. So we got to tap into that, and I'm excited.
I think it's just, so it kind of like goes both ways too, because even here in the United States, like if you are brown, people automatically assume that you're African American. And there's never like another thought that, oh, maybe this person is, I don't know, African, or maybe this person is from South America or whatever. Like, it's like, okay, you have brown skin, you have to be Black. And it's like, no, like my husband goes through that every day. And then people look at him and they're like, well, why aren't you speaking English the way that you're supposed to be speaking English, because aren't you Black? And yes, he's Black, he's just not a Black American. That's different. So it's just, that was my little caveat.
No, it's on the same exact lines. We have this spectrum of like the different aspects of el colorismo. Like, it's not just enough to say, oh, this is because people say they want to have this pure race. It's also, what is the other side of that, where we are judging a book by its cover. You know, you look at someone, él es negro, so él es afroamericano. Well, you don't know de dónde viene él. Like, get to know this person's story and like change the face of like why is it like this concept? And at the same time, the opposite end, hey, Black Americans can equally learn a language.
Exactly.
Race. You know, like we can do this. We can all, you know, I think for me, and I would imagine, me imagino que sí para ti también, cuando tú estabas en la Republicano trabajando. Next, I want you to share with us all of your work experience abroad. Pero I remember como cuando era estudiante, primeramente, porque later on, for 2.5 years later, yo viví en Costa Rica. Pero I remember part of my study abroad experience was la universidad estaba en la capital. And then when we did have like weekend immersion programs, it was nunca estaba en el Caribe. They never took us to the Caribbean. And a former associate of mine, she had been to Costa Rica el verano antes. And she said to us, oh no, we got to go see the Black people. I'm like, there's Black people here? Like,
I know. I didn't even know there were Black people when I went to Costa Rica until like maybe a couple weeks in.
I was like, where? ¿Dónde está? And I never forget. So then we were like on the sneak one weekend. I mean, this was like, gonna get there. I mean, nuestro profesores, everyone was like, don't go, muy peligroso. I'm like, why is it so dangerous? I'm like, hold up. So I'm Detroit, Michigan. I'm from Detroit and I'm Black. Come on now. Right. I think I know. And our danger, the danger there ain't got nothing on what goes on in certain areas in Los Estados Unidos. Tú vives in Chicago. Okay? We got to be woke. No matter donde
in LA, I lived in LA. I mean, you got to be careful over there too.
Right, you got to know where you know. You just got to be woke. You can't be walking around here like, oh my gosh. Well, when we were leaving, mi madre tica, ella era muy amable, but she was laying hands on us. She was praying over us, like, you know, Dios le guarde, all these things, and I was like, it was making me feel like, dude, like,
maybe I shouldn't go.
And this was way before this explosion of expats and all this stuff. But I remember when I went there, I never felt, honestly, aunque soy de Michigan, es como, y yo soy estadounidense, I always tell people my identity comes from El Altísimo, the Most High God. I may have un pasaporte americano, but I do not limit myself to what anybody says or whatever. Pero cuando yo estoy físicamente en el Caribe Sur de Costa Rica, es como, I feel like ese es el hogar de mi espíritu. Like, I just feel, you know how it is in el Caribe. I think it's because as Black people, somos bien conectados al sol. We are children of the sun. That's why everyone, when you're in paradise, it's because you are supposed, I think the original man and woman, we were up clear cerca de Ecuador. You know, we weren't up in these cold regions. So, I mean, I went there and I just remember seeing all of these beautiful Black people. And I'm like, and they're speaking Patois, English, Espanol, and the Spanish version of Patois. And I'm like,
it's like, you know, the joy that you get when you are able to share in other people's experiences and joy. I feel like that's what Spanish and being bilingual gives me, because I don't want to be limited to the American vision or the American perspective of things. Like, I want to see other people's perspective. And I just love that when you learn languages, it opens up your mind to be able to see the world the way that those other cultures or languages or whatever see it. And I feel like that is being human, that's being alive, you know, that's part of our purpose on the world, on earth, I think.
1000% agree. Okay, so for everyone that's learning Spanish, this aligns exactly to what you said. So even the concept of like el lenguaje es un reflejo de la cultura, right? You can translate, which we'll be talking about some of those things later. Yes, my girl Jacquelyn offers some translation services because some of y'all need them. Please get a professional. Stop Google translating stuff. I cannot, you know, just gotta do it the right way. Pero at the same time, I think about the question, and I always present it this way. And especially having mis amigos, and like a lot of the people in the Caribbean side, their bisabuelos vienen de Jamaica, because in the 40s and 50s they brought Jamaicans to Costa Rica,
right?
On el ferrocarril.
They brought Jamaicans to Panama too, girl.
So all that Caribe, por eso hay Caribe is different. Like los caribeños de la América Central, they all have los raíces So me imagino que tú bis somebody viene de Jamaica. And so my Rastas, uno de mis amigos, I love when I would hear him speak English because he's speaking it from the Spanish lens. So for example, when we say, ¿Cuántos años tienes? It translates to American English as, how old are you?
Right.
Literally, we know it says, how many years do you have?
Right.
But it will be weird if I walk up to you like, hey, how many years you got? How many years you got? I'm like, what, left in the joint? Like,
I know, like, what are you talking about? Years for what?
But it also sheds light on culturally the concept of time. And I love how he would say, oh, I have 40 years. And it's this concept of, instead of saying, oh, I'm 40 years old, or oh, I'm 25 years old, is paying respect. Like, I have 25 years. Where? On the earth. Like, I have 25 years of experience, of wisdom. So I embrace that, y'all. Yo tengo 36 años. I'm 36 years old. And I recently, when someone asked me, I was like, oh, ya casi tengo 37. I don't think too many women be like trying to go up.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I embrace my grace.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't tell in this hairstyle, but they up in here, girl.
Yeah, they up in there. I embrace it. It's like, how many years do you have? How, like, it's, you know, I love that sentiment because that reflects the concept of time and age, how it's perceived. Like, there's wisdom, sabiduría, you know, like, I've acquired, gracias a Dios. I think about all of what I've experienced, and even what I'm currently experiencing, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go back. Everyone's like, oh, let's go back to high school.
No.
I don't want to go back to college. Nah. You know, like, más adelante, and I just love that concept. So exactly what you said, you learn things, especially when you're reading in other languages. Listening, obviously, with that swag, that native development, but also reading is so, like, it really is fundamental because you gain insight to how this group of people perceives whatever this, what am I teaching to? La arbitrariedad. Because language is arbitrary. Like, why is a dog called a dog? Why is it un perro in español? It's not as if the name is associated with what it like does or what it looks like. It's just, it's arbitrario. So you just have to associate that, but you learn things, the concept of things. So So
I love the Spanish language in that aspect as well, because I feel like sometimes there are things that you can express a little bit more. Cuando yo vivía en la República Dominicana, yo vivía allá 3 años. Y todavía,
como yo, 3 años en Costa Rica.
Sí, 3 años y todavía mi corazón está allá. Yo amo todo mi campo, mi doña que me cuidó y estábamos allá el diciembre pasado y it was just all the feels, you know. Pero I really feel like when I lived there, I was able to experience a different part of myself that I feel sometimes, and it's not like I'm not authentically me here. I think it's just, I don't know, it just, the language just opens up a different door, a different area of you, I feel. And I think that that's one of the other things that I just love about being bilingual, because I know that in English, sometimes I struggle with how to say things. Like, man, like, I don't want to be rude, because sometimes you can say something and people can perceive it a certain way because you're being too direct. But in Spanish, I'm like, mira, pero tú estás gorda, mija.
Sí.
Pero ¿y qué es lo que tú estás comiendo?
Sí, eso.
Like, and it's not, people aren't going to take it like, oh, girl, you fat.
It's not offensive.
You know what I mean?
No, it's not offensive.
It's not offensive. And I feel like sometimes there's so many different things in the English language. It's like, dang, like, I cannot express it the way that I needed to. And so I think because I was there in my early 20s, that was something that I really needed at the time. As I was on my journey in life and learning who I was, like, I feel like that piece was able to help me find other parts of myself that I would need and am needing while I'm here in the States. I'm 29. I don't have that many years, but I do have 29 years. And so I feel like,
como tienen 19 años, mami.
Ay, gracias, mija. Y tú también, tú estás como...
I'm trying to...
Yeah, but I don't know. I can talk about how much I love Spanish. I just feel like it's really, it opens up another part of yourself. And sometimes it even like, I feel like for me, it even helped my self-esteem, being able to express myself in a new way.
Yeah.
And just, you know, those 3 years working there and learning the culture, learning the people, learning the way that they communicate. It just was really, it was great. I mean, I learned things from my Doña who took care of me, my host mom. But then I also learned things from my kids when I was in class, because when I was in the Peace Corps, yo era una coordinadora de juventud. Entonces teníamos que dar clase en las escuelas, en el colegio y también en el liceo. Oh, no, en el, ¿cómo se dice? Yeah, liceo. Like primary school and high school.
¿En el colegio?
Yo tenía que dar clase en la dos tandas y eran de como autoestima, era de autocontrol, autoevaluación, herramientas de liderazgo. It was also about like parenting classes that we would give to families like with youth, and they were like struggling with some of their behaviors, and how can I like parent, you know, this really challenging behavior in a new way. También yo trabajé yo tenía una estación de radio que hablaba de salud sexual y cuáles son los tabúes también, porque había muchos tabúes que la gente creía. There was a lot of myths that people were believing about sexual health. Like if you put 2 condoms on, you're going to be less likely to, you know, get the girl pregnant. They had, there was this one, it was like if you put a belt around your waist, then, you know, the semen's not going to get in your uterus.
Well, I definitely should invest in some more cinturón, you know, some more belts up in this place.
Girl, me too. Well, I mean, I don't have any kids yet, but I'm like, you know, look, I don't know. Maybe
some more belts. Okay, all right.
But yeah, like I did a whole bunch of stuff there, but everything was centering around like youth and like their mental health and like just like leadership and life skills, helping them plan like, okay, we're in high school, like what are we doing next? Like what are the different things that we like? Because a lot of the times when you are at a level of, and it's not like because when you don't have a lot of resources, you think about things in a survival mode, I feel. And I'm obviously I'm not a professional on that, but that's kind of my observation. Like you don't have time to sit there and be like, I'm going to journal about no.
Soñar, nada.
No, tú no tienes tiempo para eso. Tú tienes que fregar, tú tienes que trapear, tú tienes que cuidar a los niños, tú tienes que ayudar a tu mami, tú tienes que lavar la ropa. Entonces tú no estás pensando, oh,
en el futuro.
I want.
Tienes que vivir cada día por día. You know, and
exactly.
Like, ¿cómo yo voy a ganar plata bastante para comer?
Exactly. So yo tengo que ir al río. I have to go to the river to get water because, you know, the water pipe is busted and now no one's coming. The mayor's not coming. They don't care. So we got to go down to the river with the donkeys and give me some water so I can wash my clothes. Like they're not thinking about, hey, I think I want to be a doctor, or like, oh, hey, I have this really good skill. I can draw. Maybe I can be a painter. Maybe I could be an architect. So that was part of what I was doing in the high schools, is carving out space for kids to be able to dream a little bit, basically. Yeah. You know, and I loved it and I missed them so much. And the teachers were amazing. And
you know what's absolutely crazy is this concept of, you know, and it is real. Todo es relativo, you know, like the concept of privilege, privilegio, right? In los Estados Unidos, we associate it with different groups of people, or we associate with one socioeconomic status. Yet todo relativo. I love this video. Everyone check it out. It was produced, I believe the one was either from Switzerland or from Sweden, but it was produced like around 2010, but they do new revisions of it. It's called Miniature Earth. And I love how they take the world population, and we know percentages are based out of, you know, por ciento, but then they just use numbers. Instead of saying like 50%, they say 50 of the community, 40 of the community, just so it seems more realistic. And at the time, it was like 75% of the world lives off $2 a day or less. Wow. And so, and they said, si tú tienes techo, cama propia, armario, servicio, inodoro, and I think y refri, tú eres más rico, you're richer than 75% of the world. Yet our youth and even adults, we measure looking stuff up, por teléfono, Instagram, or on TikTok, and we are trying to compare ourselves with what we see that is lujoso, but that's not reality. Right. And then my heart goes out where we still have so many crazy circumstances here and situations of our own people here alone, but this is still like first world or developed world problems when there's people, like you said, we don't know if they're going to have some fresh water, so they got to go down with their water pails with some donkeys to get some water from the river. And then for you to have the opportunity to carve out that time, I think that is such, I mean, I would believe that those children, now that they're older, they still have esos recuerdos. They're still recordando.
Y también ellos tenían los recuerdos porque ellos también me enseñaron el español. Entonces, a veces, cuando yo llegaba y yo decía algo, ellos me decían, profe, pero así no se dice.
Oh, wow. So see,
I was like, I would be so embarrassed.
Pero sabe una cosa, when it comes to anything, you have to have this growth mindset, right? Yeah. And I always talk about what Henry Ford once said. You have to fail forward. Yeah. Period. And so imagine you teaching those classes, and then when your students say that to you, like, no, you can't tell me anything, or you shut down. Right. No, that's how you learn. Y por eso tú hablas como hablas hoy en día.
Yeah, no, like, like, gracias a Dios primeramente, claro, pero también, like, my husband, at the time he wasn't my husband, but he would always be like, no, you have to say this, because the other thing, and I think we had talked about this before, I had so much pressure as a brown woman because my body looked like a Dominican body, and I spoke, I had a good accent or whatever, and so people kind of had this extra pressure on me, or I felt that it was extra pressure to speak like a Dominican. And then it was also the added pressure, like, you cannot speak like a Haitian. So you had to make sure you rolled your R's the right way. If you didn't roll the R the right way, they'd be like, no, tú estás hablando como un haitiano. And it was just like, so it was like this added pressure even, and I still, of course I still love my experience, but I just remember feeling like, man, like I gotta get this language because, I mean, people are thinking, like, when you look at me, they're just like, okay, like she's another Dominican, whereas my counterparts that were, they were white, men and women, they had it a lot easier. Like if they pronounced something incorrectly, they would just be like, oh, ella la americana. But like if I did, they would be like, tú estás loca. And I would be like, whoa, like, how come I'm getting this response and she didn't get this response? Like we got here the same day.
I love it. But you what's the phrase, like diamonds, all of these precious minerals and gems, they only are produced with pressure. And I was recently reminded, hay un versículo de la Biblia, and I can't remember de cuál versión, I think it was the Amplified version, but it was talking about like steep your thoughts in like God reality. And when you think about steep, you think about como té.
Yeah.
Take a bag of tea, you ain't gonna get that. You cannot extract the essence by putting that tea bag in some cold water. It's not. Right. Then why aren't we drinking cold tea? I'm not talking about you buying some cold.
No, because even to make cold tea, you still have to have the water hot.
You see that? So the pressure, in the moment, in a momento, it's like, but you need it. And so it's kind of like, let's embrace, let's have this growth mindset and actually embrace it. Because it's like, you know what? I'll take some of that pressure, because I know it is forming me. It is shaping me. And again, tú hablas con swag, and you are in this position only because of that hot water or because of the pressure So
very true. I didn't even think about it like that. Thank you.
I'm like, you know what? Let me steep myself. Yes, let me steep.
Yes, let me get in this hot water real quick.
Okay, we can add ice later, but let me be up in this hot water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful, amazing thing. So, you met your husband. Conociste a él en la República.
Yep.
Okay, and so
he was like my so when you get into the community, they assign you a person that knows the community, that's well respected. And so it was him and his brother. They were my people because they had worked with the volunteer previously. The way they usually do the communities is they'll send 3 volunteers. They'll have 3 cycles of volunteers. So it'll be 6 years that a community will have a Peace Corps volunteer. So I was the second generation, and they had worked with the first generation. And so he was, showing me around. Him and his brother showed me around and everything. But he was like always working and always like gone. So I never really saw him. So it was kind of like absence made the heart grow fonder. In the beginning, of course, I wasn't thinking about him. He was nice or whatever, but I don't know. Just one day I was like, he's like a little cute.
Right.
So, yeah. And then we, continued to date and everything. And it was great. And then we met each other, got married. We got married there.
Wow.
Yeah, we got married there because
¿En la playa o la iglesia?
No, en la corte.
Okay, está bien.
O en el corte, perdón.
En el corte. Sí, está bien. Okay.
Yeah, but no, it was that was good. So we did. So I met him there, and then I originally was only supposed to stay 2 years because your Peace Corps volunteer time frame is 2 years. Well, it's 27 months because it's 3 months of training and then 24 months of your actual work. But then I extended a 3rd year because I had a really close bond with one of the English technicians in the District of Education in our region. And he wanted to work on this project to help the Spanish-speaking teachers teach Spanish in a new way, because but for a long time, they were teaching it like in a memorization type of way, like putting consonants with vowels, and then that would be, the kids would learn, mame, mimo, mu, pape, pipo, boo. Mm-hmm. And so he was wanting to do a pilot program basically of how to teach them the individual sounds. I can't remember, what do they call it? There's a word for it, but like when you learn the individual sounds of each letter so that you're able to basically read and, speak whichever word you see because you're able to know the sound of each letter. So I stayed on a 3rd year to help him pilot that program, and it actually went really well. But then, there was COVID, so we didn't get to do the seguimiento.
Sí.
But it was good. It was great. I love my 3rd year. And I was also my 3rd year, I was also the regional like volunteer coordinator / supervisor for the people in my region. So I had like 26 volunteers that I had to check in on and monitor their progress and make sure that their projects were going well. And then offer any type of like extra guidance. Like I would go to the schools and talk to the principals, like if there was a problem or if they didn't understand like what was the goal, because sometimes they didn't understand it all the way. They were just like, yeah, we want an American at our school, know? And then I did housing checks. Like I made sure that the housing conditions that the volunteers were going into met the standards and were appropriate. It wasn't, glamorous, but there were certain ones, like depending on where they were, there were certain standards that the house had to meet. So I would do that too. So that was what my 3rd year consisted of.
Jacquelyn, can I just say, you represent and you exude. I know we said sometimes you got to say stuff in one language as a sentiment. I got to say this in English, right?
Okay.
You exude Black girl magic. It is
my gosh.
Just listening to you. And, I love, like, tú eres una mujer muy hermosa. And then, but, la belleza is not solamente por fuera.
Exactly.
And all the time, el enfoque es de,
I gotta be snatched. Right.
No, pero tu belleza es por dentro también. And it just, when I say you exude it, it's just like, and just, I'm so happy that those individuals, whether it was the voluntarios, los alumnos, las maestras, los directores, I'm happy they all were able to tap into that and to be part of that. And I'm happy that all of our listeners and viewers also get to experience it, because you're just invigorating me. Because they say we fall down, but we get up. And then some days I'm like, dude, what in the world I'm gonna say is I doing? I ain't saying am I. Is I doing? Pero I'm just thankful that we have this community, and I really just want to make sure that we stay conectados, because I really want us to encourage, promote this bilingualism in the Black American community, because they say, literally el bilingüismo abre puertas. There are opportunities cuando una persona es bilingüe that you just do not have access to. And I know from all of my experiences, I know now listening to you about all of the opportunities you had afforded to you, I think it's just an amazing thing. And we just have to, if you know better, do better. So we just want to do this as much as possible. And I want to give a promo for you again. Hay que seguir. You have to follow Jacquelyn on Instagram. Her username is Jack, J-A-Q, _JAQ 1414. And I also want to show everybody su sitio web, your website. And les enseño ahora. Compartir mi pantalla. And so, can you tell us, Jacquelyn, what is a service that you offer?
Bueno, entonces yo comencé.
Lo siento. I want to make sure I pronounce it. It is translations-now.com. Okay, ahora, mi amor.
No, ok, entonces yo comencé este negocito porque de verdad yo quería dar acceso a personas latinas a cualquier cosa, porque no debería tener limitaciones en lo que pueden ver o lo que pueden leer, porque cuando mi esposo llegó aquí, la cosa era muy difícil para él, porque no había exámenes en español, no había diferentes lecturas de universidad en español. Entonces yo tuve que traducirlo. Entonces yo creí ese negocio porque yo quería ofrecer servicios mayormente como de lectura para traducir eso, para que la gente tenga más acceso a diferente información. Entonces traducimos documentos, por ejemplo, diferentes ensayos. Si uno tiene una página de red, yo lo puedo traducir eso. Si algún negocio quiere proveer documentaciones en español para sus empleados, también se puede hacer. Y también nosotros hacemos traducciones en español de cualquier evento, presentación que uno está haciendo. So yeah, we just do we do documentation, translation, just providing, if you have some paperwork or an application or a manual that you want to have in Spanish as well, we will translate that. If you have a presentation and you want a live translator, or I guess not in person, but maybe virtually, we can do that. If you need over the phone translations for a client or something, we would also offer stuff like that too. So just basically providing more access to Spanish speaking people to whatever it is that they need, because they should not be limited just based on the fact that they haven't learned the language here. And we don't even have a technical official language in the United States. So everyone should be able to get access to whatever it is that they need to help them get to the place that they feel is for them, for where they're supposed to be.
And also, con su servicio de traducción, this is also for American English speakers who need translation services. Everybody, por favor, I have to say this, and I'm not throwing any shade at Google Translator. haga lo que tiene que hacer. Si es una emergencia and you need to look up something to communicate effectively, por favor, hágalo. Pero when you want to produce an official document, whether you are starting un negocio, we have a lot of people starting businesses afuera del país y ellos están en un país hispano, whether Costa Rica, Colombia, Venezuela, please reach out to Jacquelyn. She's here. She's here to help out because there's a lot of mistranslations going on and people trying to do this, that, and the third.
And I think the other thing too is like it's cultural. Like sometimes you're gonna do a translation, like you said, for Google Translate, but maybe that word does not mean the same thing. It doesn't express what you want to express. So you have to also be able to speak in a way that someone is going, your client, whoever your client is going to be able to understand. You don't want to just put like, I can't even think of a word right now, but there, you know, there's words and I've like even told them to my husband and he's just like, I don't even know what that means.
Because, you know, it's also that las expresiones, right? Because when you do that translation, like literally you can look up word for word and possibly phrase for phrase.
Right.
Now, there's a way to say things. There's a Spanish speaking way that's separate from the actual Spanish words, if that makes sense. Which again reflects a culture. Just as like you mentioned earlier, tengo 36 años, right? That means it translates to I'm 36 years old. Pero literally what is written is I have 36 years. I know a lot of people that will write soy. This is what I'm talking about. They'll say soy because in English we say I'm.
Right.
In Spanish you don't say soy, even though there's some in Spanglish. So you will hear with Spanglish people saying soy. But that's not, I mean, when you have official translation, you want it to be, you know, grammatically correct as well.
And we are working on our certification for American Translation Association. So we'll be getting that I'm hoping within the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be able to have that. So we'll be American translator certified.
They say a couple that prays together stays together. I'm going to add a couple that translates together.
Yeah, and my husband, I'm telling you right now, he is totally itching to get in here because he's like, tú tienes la entrevista con la muchacha, ¿verdad?
¿Él llegó a la casa?
Sí, él llegó.
Para venir acá para saludar. Porque antes de salir, porque ya casi estamos terminados, pero...
Ok, dame un segundo, espérate.
Ok, está bien. Ahora we're going to meet el esposo de ella, de Jacquelyn. And I'm so happy that she had this opportunity para viajar, trabajar en un país.
Ok, aquí presento el señor Marcelo Simón.
Ay.
Hola, Marcelo, ¿cómo estás?
Estamos bien, gracias a Dios. ¿Usted cómo está?
Bien, gracias a Dios, él es fiel. Ok, primeramente, bendiciones a los dos.
Amén, gracias igual para ti también.
Dios es súper fiel y vea, tú eres un hombre bien, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cuál adjetivo puedo usar? Porque la mujer que tienes tú, ella es una estrellita.
¿Por eso mira?
Gracias.
Oh,
ella es mi luna, porque le estrella
eso. Así es la cosa. Entonces, bendiciones a ustedes con su negocio. Y no es un negocito, no es nada pequeño, porque como dice Drake, started from the bottom, now we're here. Hay que empezar. Y recuerden, no hay atajo sin trabajo. Y si ustedes están trabajando, orando juntos, luchando juntos, no hay nada. Y si Dios está con ustedes, ¿quién contra ustedes? Nada.
Amén, mira.
Amén.
Bueno.
Así es, así como yo bailo. Entonces, bendiciones a ustedes. Gracias por haberse tomado tiempo de estar aquí conmigo.
Sí,
y
gracias a ustedes.
mis personas. Y sí, vamos a estar en contacto porque, mami, hay un montón de cositas que quiero hacer.
Sí, avísame, llámame, cualquier cosa. Pero yo iba a hacer vaina.
Ok, y también quizás en el verano voy para Chicago.
Ok, sí, avísanos.
Sí, o
estaremos aquí. Bueno, nosotros no vivimos.
¿Me avisa también?
Nosotros no vivimos en Chicago, pero
no. ¿A dónde?
Nosotros vivimos en Illinois, pero que vivimos en el más del sur.
Es como un suburbio.
Más cerca de San Luis.
Ay, sí, yo recuerdo, en el sur del estado.
Yeah.
Ok, ¿cuántas horas de Chicago está?
5.
15 horas manejando.
No está muy mal, pero si tú me avisas con tiempo, podemos llegar allá. If you give me time, we can drive up there, girl. Don't worry, we'll take a
Está
train.
bien, no worries, ok, está bien. Ok, mis amores, besitos a todos, abracitos, gracias por todo.
Gracias.
And have a wonderful evening. Ciao, everybody.
Chao.
Chao, bye.
Hey, tengo un secreto, escúchame bien por un rato.